So today on Midlife Conversations, I'm talking with Deborah, who I found on social media, and I was so impressed with her. One, she's my age, so I loved that right away. Two, she's fit as anything, like super fit, super strong, and she's totally been disrupting the belief set around aging. And so she was instantly like a friend from afar for me because I thought I love that she's seeing what I see, that we could redefine midlife, that it doesn't have to be a certain way. It doesn't have to be the way media portrays it. It doesn't have to be the way our grandparents lived midlife. And I love watching her, how strong she is, how motivated, how incredible, and how inspiring she is. So I had to know her story. So I brought her on today to hear all things, how she got into this, why she loves CrossFit type of training so much. Like how does she do that without it hurting her body? And just to understand like any advice that she has for women our age. So thank you so much for being here, Deborah. I can't wait to talk with you.
Well, thank you. My gosh, what a thrill and an honor to join you here.
So take us back a little bit. I'm assuming, were you always an athlete? Was that something always in you? Was that something later in life? Give us a little background on that, first of all.
I get asked this a lot from my followers. My whole adult life, I tell people, yes, I have been active, but I usually tell them that I was an endurance athlete. So I was a rower at university, but then I spent a good chunk of my years as a triathlete. So for those of you who don't know, triathlon is swimming, biking, running, and like running races, there are a bunch of distances, and I specialized in the longest distance, which is called Ironman. But I did not do any strength work. So basically I swam a whole load, biked a whole load, and ran a whole load. And then I had kids, and that got more difficult because of the time that you need to put into it. So I was looking for something new, and that's where the CrossFit came in.
Yeah, tell us about that. Cause I think a lot of, especially women, especially in our age, they're like, they look at CrossFit as this, like, no, that's for super crazy, strong athletes. That's for guys. That's for butch women. Like they have this whole, or I'm going to get injured. Tell us a little bit about that. And did you have those thoughts before you started it?
Of course, I'd never really lifted before. I did a little bit of the gym, dumbbell stuff, but, of course, what you see when you Google CrossFit or look it up on YouTube is the elite group of people who are lifting ridiculously heavy weights and throwing sandbags over their shoulders. And so I was a bit apprehensive, and I was 49. So, I thought to myself, I'm a good athlete, but I don't know anything about this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But the thing that I've discovered, of course, I talked to a lot of people. I went to CrossFit classes where there were great coaches, and, any CrossFit gym that's decent will have a really good set of coaches. And what I've discovered is that CrossFit is actually, that's just the brand name. It's actually the brand name of functional fitness. Okay. So you'll see functional fitness. You'll see that term used everywhere. It's another type of functional fitness. And the point of functional fitness is that it is accessible to everybody because it involves moves that help us with our everyday function. And the great thing about CrossFit, which I discovered being a beginner 3 years ago, is that you can scale everything. You can modify everything. Just like, in the gym, you can scale your weight. If you can't pick up a 20-pound dumbbell, you can pick up a 5-pound dumbbell.
So if somebody's listening and going, well, I have injuries, I can't do that. You're saying you can modify. It's not just what you see online or any of that.
For sure. I mean, obviously, if you have injuries, you should consult with a specialist like a physio to understand what the injury is. But CrossFit really, it's actually a very basic set of movements. Squats feature heavily, deadlifts feature heavily. They're not complicated movements, but you do need to know how to do them properly. And that's what the coaches in a CrossFit gym are. That's what they're there for.
Got it. Okay. So when you walked in, first of all, tell me, like, were you intimidated at first? Like that, I drive by those and I see them and I'm thinking they intimidate me. I'm like, I see grunting and throwing things. I'm like, I think of myself as pretty strong and pretty fit, but they're intimidating to me.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. I still, even today, I work out mostly at home. I have a great CrossFit setup at home, but even when I go for the odd class, Of course, I'm still intimidated. There are
Really?
people there much better than me, and there always will be. Um, but you know what? I think because I've got, I'm 52 now. I'm going to be 53
Hmm.
in January. I've stopped caring what people think, and
Hmm.
I'm just kind of, trying to better myself and compete against myself. And I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself. I mean, maybe that is the benefit of being older, is you kind of go into things saying, what have I got left to prove? Nothing, right? I've
Mm.
got nothing left to prove. I don't care if I embarrass myself or my
Hmm.
kids anymore. It's just, I'm going to do what I want to do because it's fun.
Hmm.
And I love learning. So that's why I keep going back is, I show up at the gym and I'm like, oh, that looks really hard. But then I ask, well, what should I be focusing on? I ask the coach, what should I be focusing on? What's the difficulty? What am I doing wrong here? And
Mm.
it's all about the learning. I think if you open yourself up to learning, I think the ego goes away and the fear goes away, or
Mm.
you know, sort of goes away. There's still fear left.
Talk to me about, in general, women in our age group that are not fit. Your feelings on
Mhm.
that. Can anyone get fit? Why is it important? What do you encourage? Because, and I speak this because most women that I speak with or that are in my world that I see, they are in they're going through the perimenopause and menopause ages. Their body's shifting anyways based on hormones. Their metabolisms are maybe slowing down. They're losing muscle naturally. So
Mhm.
they're putting on the 10 to 15 pounds. They're talking about midsection. And there's sort of this camaraderie in accepting that. And I watch that, like, oh, even doctors saying, oh, it's your age, you've got to accept it's your hormones. And I hear this, it's very real for women. And then I find women like you who it's like, you look like a 20-year-old. Like it doesn't, you're as fit, you wouldn't know anything's changing for that. So I'm curious, just in general, your experience around that, your belief set, what do you see and what have you experienced in your own body?
um, for sure, you've kind of reflected how I feel when I'm contacted by women every day who are in a completely different kind of frame of mind to me. And there's no doubt, what I'll say is there's no doubt this menopause journey and this aging journey is tricky. I haven't escaped it. I am in the middle of menopause right now,
Me too.
right
Yep.
smack bang in the middle of it. I have had all of it, the hot flashes, the
Oh yeah.
aching, the lack of sleep, the anxiety and stress. And um, I
It's good.
don't
It's good
know.
times. It's good times.
Oh yeah, so fun.
Yeah.
Men, really are very lucky. They get
Yeah.
away with not having to experience a ton of things. But I have no idea. I'll be honest. I have no idea whether my experience with menopause, which I don't feel is really horrific, is a function of my mindset and my training,
Mhm.
or that I've been a bit luckier than some others, because of course everyone's journey is very different, or if something else that I'm doing has helped my experience. But what I will say to women out there is that my mantra or my advice to people is don't settle. Don't settle for whatever is handed to you by hormones or by injuries, even, or by life events,
Mhm.
because the alternative to me is you settle and you give up and you
Mm.
start sliding backwards. You might have to fight a little bit. And somebody actually once said to me on my an Instagram post, "Why are you fighting aging?" And they were asking
Mm.
in a negative way. And I said, "I'm not fighting it. I just
Sure.
refuse to settle for a decline."
I hate
Because
that question, by the way. I get that too. Like, why? Like, it's not, I think we all get to live it the way that we want. Like, I don't believe it's in fighting it. It's just living it the way that we choose to.
exactly. And my response was, I am using my body the way that I can. Why
Yes.
not? If I can do this, why wouldn't I don't understand why somebody would want to let their body just kind of deteriorate. Well, first of all, it's super fun for me. I just honestly just love it. I get
Hmm.
on my hands on my barbell every day and I'm like, this is so awesome. I love this so much. But I love that it has helped me feel like I'm still living a full life, as
Mm.
opposed to some of the stories I hear from women, which is, I'm devastated. I've put on 20 pounds in the
Yes.
last 6 months or a year, and I have no idea why, and I feel, and my joints ache, and I can't get out of bed in the morning, and it's really
Wow.
depressing. I desperately need help. I mean, the cries for help that I get are, incredible. It's really upsetting. So that's what I would say about, the different menopause experiences is everybody's going to have a different experience, but
Mm-hmm.
don't settle. Try and find the pivots and the adaptations and whatever you can do, right? Just do what you can do.
Deborah, do you find for you and your clients, do you buy into that the metabolism slows down, it's harder to put on muscle? And if you, do or don't, I'm curious about that. And how do you combat that? Because clearly you don't have an issue with that right now on your body. Like you are strong, you are getting stronger.
Well, so I don't know whether I am losing muscle. So here's what I believe in. I believe, yes, I know for a fact from the science that the muscle loss is significant, especially over 50 in
Yes.
our age group. It's something like 10% per decade. So it's terrible. What I do know is that the good point on that is you can actually offset the loss, right? You can take action. It's within your control. And that's what I love about what I'm able to do, or the fact that I found strength training CrossFit, is that you can actually offset something that people originally thought was just inevitable. You actually, again, going back to settling, you don't have to accept that. You can actually give it a physical stimulus to build the muscle, even though your estrogen is dropping and you're losing that sort of internal mechanism. I think that all the rest of it. I mean, the other things that come with aging, you do have to fight it a little bit, to use that horrible term, but I definitely buy into the fact that we are losing muscle mass, but that we can do something about it. The metabolism thing, it's tricky because I think that is such an accepted thing right now, and the science recently has shown that our metabolisms actually don't slow until we're 60 because of the hormonal effect anyway. Our metabolism does slow down because of the muscle loss, because there's less metabolically active tissue, but it also slows down because of our lifestyle choices. As we get older, people don't want to admit this, by the way. They don't want to admit this. And then when I do a deep dive into their nutrition and their lifestyle habits, we see, you know what, you're sitting around a lot more. When you were younger, you were out with your friends, you were running around after kids, you were going all sorts of places. And now you've got work, you've got, raising kids, you're looking after elder parents, and you're sitting around a lot more. And you're also probably not eating as well as maybe you could or used to. Probably a lot of people are drinking more alcohol because, now we can afford it, as opposed to when we were young, couldn't afford going out and drinking, and all those things add up to
you said
weight
something
gain.
Also very critical that I want people to hear too, because yes, you're right. The research does support now that it's after 60 that it slows down. However, just losing muscle is going to slow down your metabolism. So it's like the cause and the effect. So basically what I'm hearing you say, and what the research is really supporting, is it's not just the age, it's the loss of muscle that comes with age if you don't combat it. So that can create that. And when, just from the type of training I know that CrossFit is, and I'm assuming this is what you would align with, it's just that idea of pushing yourself and progressively training, like progression, like loading, whether that's CrossFit or something else, is going to help you to maintain and grow muscle. So you're going to combat it.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. And I think this is, again, another issue that women particularly come up against. Certainly in my generation, there was no strength training. There was no such thing for women. But, into the Jane Fonda era, and then beyond that, it was all about the high reps at light weights so that you can tone. And I know I've seen posts that you had about toning and what that means. And it's hilarious, because toning basically means having muscle show up, which means build the muscle and lose the fat and it'll show up. But the problem is, women have got it into their heads that for women, we should not be lifting that heavy. We should sort of maybe do the 15 reps thing, maybe pick up the 15-pound dumbbells. And when people ask me, so how do you train? And I tell them what my deadlift or my squat or, clean and jerks, I do the Olympic lifting too. They're all looking at me like, oh my God, are you crazy? But you don't look very big. And I was like, well, but I'm not, I'm obviously muscular, but if you saw me walking down the street, I would look like a fairly normal,
Yes.
probably reasonably fit person. And that's the fear that women have of lifting heavy is one, injury, obviously. And two, just getting really bulky. A lot of women our age still think that way. And
which is so crazy because I know how hard it is to grow muscle. So it's
my
if you only knew like how hard like a bodybuilder or a fitness competitor works to grow that muscle, like you wouldn't think that way.
The nutrition, all the nutritional hoops they have to jump through with the bulking and the cutting and the, I'm piling in protein every day. And I do take creatine as well, because it's been shown that supports great muscle growth. And I lift really heavy, like, 230-pound deadlifts. And I still don't look anything like even the women in CrossFit who are my idols, right?
Okay, two questions that are coming up for me that are equally as important. I want to know, what do you advise? Because some women are going to hear, okay, I've got to lift heavier, and I don't want them to think they should go out and try to deadlift 250 pounds.
No.
What can I speak into that, and people that have injuries, and do you have any injuries? And like, how do you work around that? And then I have a question about nutrition here and the protein comment that you made. So I'll come to that second.
Okay. So injuries are tough. I don't really have injuries. And I think this is where you have to sort of chat with people that you're working with. What do you mean by an injury? I have tightness for sure. I'm working my muscles really hard. So the number one thing that I've really stepped up on as I've been getting older is my mobility work. So that's the dynamic stretching and, movement through a range of motion with no weights and that sort of thing. That has helped immensely. So the stretching has helped to keep the injuries at bay. When I feel something really tight, then I do extra mobility on that area. I haven't had anything really sideline me from doing the lifting. Sometimes if my hamstrings are really tight, I'll back off the weight a little bit. I'll still do the work, but I'll back it off to where it feels okay for me. So I would say to people, it's that mentality of don't accept, don't settle. You have to read your body. You have to get to know your body and know when it's tight and what to do about that, the mobility work, versus when you've got like real pain.
I love it. It's pain. I love that answer, because for me, I'm like an injury queen. I mean, I've had torn bicep, no disc between L5S1, and I still work out. But this is what I want to share. Like for instance, I have no disc right now between L5S1. It completely ruptured out. I had emergency surgery. I had foot drop, the whole thing several years ago. And right away, people would think, well, you can't squat, you can't deadlift, you can't do all these things. No, actually, when you squat or deadlift correctly, like when you're fully engaging your glutes and doing it the way you should be, not your lower back, it actually takes your lower back out of the equation and it feels great. Correct. So it's like, I think there's a functional dynamic that's really critical for people to learn too, because just because you have an actual injury or something in a spot, it doesn't mean that working out or doing an exercise is going to affect that when you do it correctly. I had somebody message the time of this recording today. Someone messaged my team this morning saying that they were asking if I had weight workouts versus body weight because their wrist hurt when they do things I teach, like planks. And what went to my head initially was, your wrist hurts when you're doing a plank because you're not doing a plank correctly. Because if you're doing a plank correctly and engaging your glutes and your core and all the things, you shouldn't put all the pressure on your wrists. So I think that, and you probably innately think this way, Deborah, I'm assuming that like, it's not, when we look at injury, you've got to look at the whole body, because by activating the correct muscles around it, that injury might come out of the equation.
Yes. And, everything is connected in our body, right? When you think you have a lower back or a knee injury, it actually might be your lower back.
Or your hip. It could be.
Or your hip. Yeah. I mean, I dislocated my shoulder lifting, my first serious injury ever. I did dislocate my shoulder back in March. And I just did a whole load of lower body stuff until I was cleared to do the upper body stuff.
Sure.
Where I did, one side. But the point is that you should be able to adapt, right? You learn why that happened, and you learn not to do it again, obviously. So most injuries are a function of bad form or going heavier than maybe you're ready for. So that's the advice I would, and you said it earlier, was the progression. I mean, you don't start off trying to deadlift 200 pounds.
Exactly.
You start off with 50 or 40 or whatever it is you can manage.
Yeah.
And then you build up from there. And that's how you minimize the risk of injury. There's always a risk of injury, but you can minimize it.
By the way, like my glutes are pretty strong, and I deadlift like a lot less than you. I mean, I'll have like 245 plates max. So, it's
still heavy,
but even I could even go deadlift honestly with like a 25-pound dumbbell, but because I'm using my mind and really thinking through where I want to activate and what I'm creating there, I'll do it. I'll get that same workout. So I think there's a lot in our mind connection too, versus what we're actually lifting, if you're focused on what you're squeezing and what you're activating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. My question about diet now, because this is a topic that I think you and I are very aligned with, that a lot of people are not, and about protein. And I want to talk about that because I know for me, I tend to try to eat pretty much my body weight in protein a day. So I'm curious about you, and if you could talk through that.
Yes. Well, I actually try to eat more than my body weight because I am lifting very heavy. So my body weight's about 128 pounds.
We're exactly the same. We're the age, all the things. Yeah, that's exactly what I am. Yeah.
But
how tall are you? I'm curious.
I'm 5'3".
Okay, I'm 5'2". So we're good.
Oh
okay.
my gosh.
We really
there
are
you go. Twins. Yeah. But I eat about 150 grams.
So you're eating a lot more protein than me, even. That's good to know.
Well, I think I need to, because when I'm working often in 3 rep max range of weight. So that's why I'm deadlifting, 225, 230.
Okay.
And when you're lifting really heavy, it's advisable, if assuming you want to keep getting stronger, advisable to go over that 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Of course, everybody's different. But yeah, I eat about 150 of protein. I do eat a lot of carbs as well, because CrossFit, me personally, I need carbs. I really need a lot of carbs. I must kind of
Can you
have
define
nervous energy.
Carbs? Like what? Because when people hear carbs, they hear muffins, cookies. They also hear vegetables, fruit. What are your carbs?
My go-tos are, always lots of vegetables.
Okay.
But, I don't see vegetables as my carbs. For me, carbs are things like rice, sweet potato. Yes, I eat bread. I love bread. I mean, bread is life for me. Sourdough. So I'll eat, the bread, the rice, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, pasta sometimes. The key for me is portion sizes. I am on about 275 grams of carbs a day, so it's quite a bit. But I eat them around my workout sort of period. Okay. So if I'm working out at 9 in the morning, my breakfast is heavy on carbs. My post-workout food is heavy on carbs and protein, obviously. And then my lunch, I'm having quite a few carbs as well. But then as the day wears on, the carbs other than vegetables get less and less and less.
Got it.
So that's how I work it.
Do you do fruit carbs too? And do you ever have processed food besides bread?
Oh yes.
Okay.
I love fruit, berries mostly. I'm not as big a fruit eater as vegetables, just purely, I don't know, I'm not a super sweet tooth. Processed stuff, of course I do. We have protein pancakes in the morning, which comes from a box, stuff like that.
So you don't really subscribe to the CrossFit way of eating. You don't do like the paleo way that that a lot of the CrossFit teaches.
No, and I think the CrossFit community as a whole is becoming more representative of the average society, which is everybody's got their thing. Of course, paleo is a bit more common. No, I don't really. I don't like any way of eating that asks you to eliminate an entire food group. I don't believe in that. I think it creates a really bad relationship with food, especially for women who have issues in that area anyway.
But here's what I want, Wim. I want people to hear that are listening to you, because this is really important. There's a distinction here, because some people are going to hear, pasta, rice, bread, lots of carbs, but listen to how hard she works out, because you can't, if you did not work out, that would not work. And you know that.
No, it wouldn't. And for me, I think my metabolism is a little different to other people. Does that mean that I can just go crazy on carbs? No, I'm very specific. I do track my food, not obsessively, but I do track it. and I do not go over that amount, 275. And I do eat it around my workout,
Got it.
which, scientifically shown to be the optimal time to take in your carbs.
Now,
But
talk
yeah,
to me about
and I try not to eat the processed carbs.
Yes.
Like the majority of it is the sweet potato stuff.
And the rice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you what is your protein a combination of real food protein? Is it protein powders? Like, how do you figure that? What do you do there? Because I find myself trying to get in, 120 grams of like animal protein it's hard for me. Like I have to add in some scoops of protein or something. I'm curious about you.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's and also if you're trying to keep fat grams under control too, right? It's hard to eat real food protein. So I try as much as possible. I have probably about 1 to 2 scoops of protein powder a day. And that's split up between, I love my protein coffee in the morning.
Whey or do you use something else?
Whey. Yeah, okay. I use whey, unflavored whey. I like to control the flavors in my protein. But, I have some of it in my coffee. I have protein coffee and I have a protein shake after my workout, which is just the protein powder and banana and cocoa and just natural stuff. And then the rest of it, I do try and eat the animal protein, but I may end up with like Greek yogurt, the plain Greek yogurt with a little more protein powder in it and some cocoa powder and chocolate chips in the evening as my dessert. So yeah, there's a little bit of the powder stuff, but I can't force enough meat into me.
So talk to me about your fats too, because this is another thing we might actually align on, which is really interesting because not a lot of people, because it's so trendy right now to be keto and to be like these high fat diets. And I don't, I think especially in our age group, this gets very dangerous. We get very high on calories. This is not to be taken lightly. Like this is people are looking at kind of like when we remember years ago, like in the 90s, the 80s, 90s, if it was fat free, we just thought we could eat them like gummy bears. Like, it's gummy bears. Like they're fat free. That's kind of what's happening with this keto world though. People are like, oh, it's keto. I can have as much as I want, but you're getting so many calories when you start loading with fat like that.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to any eating plan that asks you to cut out an entire food group, especially fruit. I mean, ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think that the problems with keto are that you're basically creating this weird relationship with food mentally. Keto is great. It might work for people who have epilepsy and who are not very active. Those are the two
diabetics.
Groups of people.
I would say maybe diabetics too. Yeah.
And diabetics. Yep. But I think one of this also connects with that mentality that you see out there on Instagram too, that if it's good fats like avocados and whatever else, it's okay. I'm going to have a whole avocado with my meal. The point is you need to keep a track of these things. Yeah. Whether they're good fats or not, you still need to be eating the right amount. Because as you said, you'll start to climb up there in the calories, the fat calories. And, a calorie is a calorie. I believe in that very strongly. Some calories are more nutritionally useful than others, but I take in, about 65 grams of fat a day. That's about 25% because I'm on about 2,300 calories a day. And, it takes a little bit of work to keep it under what I would normally eat. Like I can't have 3 whole eggs,
or having like a handful of nuts. Like I was doing that for a long time. Cause it's like the nuts are, and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, that adds up so quickly.
That's the classic one that a lot of my clients are like, well, I have nuts with fruit. I'm like, that's awesome. But how big is the handful of nuts?
And are like 6
is
nuts?
It a tablespoon?
Yeah.
So I think that's why I love the macro tracking, because you can have your nuts, but then you might have to adjust another time in the day because your fat grams are a little higher and, dinner might be, some beef or something that maybe has a bit more fat too. So, it's just data. It really is. I mean, it's not obsessive, but yes, you do have to watch fat. And I do not like keto at all. I don't like what it does.
I cringe when I hear these people talking about keto being the answer for everyone, because I honestly think it can work temporarily for a lot of people. But I will say, especially in our age group, I'm seeing like worse issues from being on that. And I'll tell you, even when I was leaning more towards keto, my blood work stuff was crazy. Like I couldn't believe how quickly a lot like markers has changed, heart, all the things. So I'm like, I'm not subscribed to that at all.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really backed down on fats after that. So, okay. So this is interesting. What do you want women to know? Like if you're talking to, because the majority of my listeners are midlife, what do you want them? And I've got some men listening, but what do you want women to know about aging and like knowing what you know now, like if you could kind of tell women stepping into this or struggling, like what do you want them to know from you?
I think it goes back to what I said about having that mindset of not settling for what everybody else tells you midlife is supposed to be like. Oh, it's all over once you hit 40. And even your kids tell you that, right? Oh, well, that's really old.
Yeah. And I have a 15-year-old. I'm like,
yeah, I have a 16-year-old. And, the thing is, you should live your life the way that you hope that it can be. So if you feel like you're a little crazy and you've got lots of life left in you, then do the things that your body allows you to and that your personality allows you to. If you want to try CrossFit, don't let what others say put you off. Don't let them say, oh, you'll get injured because you're old, or you'll be the oldest one in the gym, or you'll whatever. I mean, I did a silly reel on being the oldest woman at the gym, and people loved it because it's like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you go?
Yeah.
So that's the message. It's like, I still feel like I'm in my 20s.
Yep.
I still feel ready to take on a whole bunch of things. Not every day. Some days are worse than others. But that's the first message. It's just go out there and do what you hope you can do and that your body allows you to do. And the second thing is, don't let setbacks, because there are many of them in midlife, don't let health and physical and mental or life setbacks keep you down. Because, like I said, the alternative is accepting it and just sliding into this horrible decline to the point where you feel like, oh, this is awful. My life is awful. Or you can just adapt, try something else. If you're injured, well, then work out the other body parts as much as you can and go seek out, expert opinions on why the injury happened. I'm shocked at how many people have bad knees and they're like, well, I can't work out. It's like, well, have you been to a physio? Well, no, but just, go and fight, actually fight for your health, fight for your
I'm with you on
enjoyment.
That. Big time. I couldn't believe how many even doctors told me like that I had to give up certain things because of injuries. And I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out. Like
get a second opinion.
Yeah. In the like, I get it. Like, yeah, if you're doing the wrong form and you're doing things like that, that wouldn't make sense for me. But if you actually correctly learn how to use your body's very adaptable. You can work around things, sure. I believe. So okay, everyone, you've got to go follow. Is your Instagram your main platform?
It is. Yeah. Okay. I have a website, but most of it goes up on Instagram.
So you've got to follow her on Instagram. I just love following her and like watching her. She's fun. She shows great things. Like it's fun watching her format, her form, everything, but it's stronger_movement. So it's STRONGR_movement. Follow her on Instagram. If you loved this episode, share, tag us both so we can see and we can say hi to you. But this is so good, Deborah. Thank you so much for being here. How do you want people to find you? To go to your website, go to Instagram? Where do you want them to find you and learn more?
Yeah. Just hop onto Instagram. I post pretty much everything on there, and I'm working on my YouTube channel and some online courses and some strength training via an app. So it'll all be announced on Instagram. Amazing. So follow me there. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This was so fun. I hope that all your listeners out there learned something and got some inspiration or at least some motivation. So I hope it works for everybody and that they all get out there and do something really amazing in their midlife.